I swear it hates me.
Yeah.
I get frustrated and then I stop it because I can't stand it.
I don't blame you because that
I
is
get so
frustrating.
frustrated. Like,
Because that's like,
everything else plays and does fine when I do shows, but my intro, I've
I,
done it on different browsers. I've rebooted my internet. I've got a new computer. Done-
it, that's just not right because it's
I
actually a
know.
really cool intro.
It is cute, isn't it?
Yeah, I like
And they
it.
made
But
it
I saw it when you sent me the
the links.
link
Mhm,
thing. Yeah,
mhm.
yeah. But I didn't see
Yeah.
it when you did the last podcast because you had to turn it off.
I was like, it starts glitching usually in the first 10 seconds, and I'm already like, damn it. Damn it.
Does it ever work? No.
I
Okay.
get everything else to play, but my intros, I don't know what it is. I am like vexed with the intros.
And I can't help you because
No.
I know nothing about this.
Well, happy Sunday, everybody. Thank you for coming out and being with us. I have a special treat. This is my dear friend TR. And let's see, we met on Telegram. It's been like 2 years at
I think it
least.
might even be more.
It might be more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was at least in 21
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm a research junkie and you had a lot of people that were needing help with certain subjects and I was diving in all the time with that
Mhm.
and dropping
Mhm.
links and doing stuff. I probably was overwhelming. I didn't mean to be, but
No, you would
I
show up
probably
with like
was.
magic things, and I was like, yes, I don't have to look for it, you know?
I was like,
Already
"Oh,
had
do
it.
you need this? Here it is. Oh, do you need this?" 'Cause I like being
Yeah, but
helpful.
well, you are, but do you know what? I don't make friends with everybody on Telegram. And
Fair.
I could just sense that you were good, like I was
Aw,
like, oh, I like this girl. So
thank you.
yeah, I mean
Thank
it's amazing how much you can actually like pick up across the
Yes.
internet. It's
When
wild.
being in tune, yes.
Mhm.
I often have prayed for enhanced discernment, I guess would
Yeah,
be the easiest way to
yeah.
explain it because I have to be able to sift through stuff so quickly, and I have
Mhm.
to have a really good gut instinct on it,
Yeah,
or how do I move through? How is this going fast enough? So,
yeah. Yeah, it
well,
takes a while, but once you find those parameters, you're kinda like, "Yes, no,
once you
yes,
zone
no,
in.
yes, no."
Mhm. And you just keep moving. You
Yeah.
just gotta
Well,
keep moving no matter
anyway,
what.
I was glad to meet you, and I'm so glad to be here doing this with you
Thank you
today,
for
so
this.
no,
I
thank
hope you
you.
have a good time because we have several other subjects that you can come back and talk to us about that we were
Well, as
I
long
would
as I don't
love
torch
that.
this up, yeah, okay.
Not gonna.
Well, no,
It's gonna
but
be
see, the
great.
thing is, this is not so the Schumann is not my, like, main thing, It's just something that I've been watching for years
Now,
now,
tell
which
us a
is why
little
when
bit.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, tell us a little bit about your background and I guess your coming awareness of certain
Mm,
things. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying?
okay. Yeah, oh,
Like, just
I do. But how
how
do
to
I do it?
sift through. Yeah.
Okay, so my background is I'm a little bit eclectic, a lot bit eclectic. So my background is I have a and I'm not bragging, I'm just trying to explain. I have an
No.
undergrad degree in electrical engineering, and I spent
Mhm,
a long time in the military,
mhm.
flying and running radar systems. So, and I taught that. So I have this kind of real geeky engineering background, but I also am now an artist. So if that makes any sense to you at all, it's almost like my whole life has been this dance between the right and left sides of my brain.
That actually makes
So
perfect sense.
yeah, and so this kind of thing and the Schumann really works for me because it's a
It's
well,
a
not
blend.
tangible, but it's a visible representation
Mhm.
of something going on that people are noticing is affecting them in what might be called sort of a woo-woo way, right? So I love trying to bridge the gap between those two worlds,
Yep.
like how do I explain this in a way that might get someone's attention when they would have completely disregarded it otherwise,
Mhm.
You know, how do I make it real? And I had studied in the past, I had studied energy medicine a little bit. I went to this really wild school out here, not wild, but this school out here. Well, they've changed the name now, but at the time it was the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology. And I mean, it was
Ooh.
all the woo woo. So, um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and I actually didn't finish my degree there because we had to move, and it was before all of this online stuff even existed. But um, it was, you know, kind of one of those bridging the gap things. You know, like I mean,
Mhm.
I had a course on, you know, straight up psychology, and then I had another course literally on like ESP. So
Oh, wow. That's really cool. Like, I'm fascinated by all of that because I feel like we probably were all born with certain gifts and we were taught and talked our way out of it in,
mhm,
growing up like, "Oh,
mhm.
that's just some fantasy. That's not real. That's not," but yet people can do things that are unexplainable by our current standards.
Absolutely.
I'm
And I mean,
fascinated by it.
yeah,
Like,
I am
we had a
too.
great discussion
Yes.
about Reiki one time,
Uh-huh.
and I think there's a lot to Reiki.
There
I'm by no means
absolutely
a
is.
master, but there's a
Yeah.
lot to Reiki. We've
Yeah.
been talking about my first episode was The Hidden Messages of Water, which I
Yeah,
know
that was
you
a good
love
one.
that book, and then I
Yep.
was into frequency, and then I was looking at, all the other ones with neuroscience, which, hey, if you wanna come talk about any of that with me, I'm totally open.
Okay. Okay.
And
Yeah,
thank
I
you,
mean,
Johnny donated 1,000 gold pills to us. Thank you,
oh,
hon.
thanks, Johnny. So what were we just saying? This has been happening today. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna preempt the whole thing.
I'm now blaming my hair color and my age.
Perfect.
That's my thing right now. I'm just like, I'm
Yeah,
closer to 50 than 40, so I'm just gonna go
yeah.
with it.
I no, I quit. I've got my little silvers in there. I promised my husband I'd
I think
stop
they look
dyeing it.
pretty.
I
They
like
look
them too, honestly. Like
I think they're very
I like it.
pretty.
Oh, but what we were saying was,
Yes,
you were saying,
before we squirreled.
yeah, sorry. This is gonna be good. Um, is that we do all have these capabilities. That's the thing. Is like we all have them. Some people might be more prone to them than others, you know,
Right,
just naturally, or maybe it's the way you were brought up, or maybe it was just the fact that somebody didn't squash it out of you.
right, right.
But we do all have this. And
Mhm,
that is something that I'm really passionate about, is like
mhm.
I don't want to tell you what to do. I want to help people figure out how to get it for themselves. You know, like
Yeah.
how do you activate this yourself? Because everybody has it. You know, it's like
Mhm.
I'm not special. You're not special. I mean, you are, but everybody can do
Yeah.
this stuff. And
I feel
I
like
think,
your channel, you're focused a lot on helping people unlearn, I guess, would
yeah,
be part of that, is to just unwind and unlearn. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, and I've just always been a natural shit disturber. Like, I mean, I, I mean, I would try to pretend like that's something that's happened since I like woke up or all these things. Like, no, I was always like that. It was a weird dichotomy between like being really good student and like
Mhm.
following all the rules, but then finding ways to not, and then
Right,
also to poke holes in everything. So, I
right.
mean, it's just who I am. So, hi.
I'm not sure how I may have started learning about Schumann from you. I'm not sure. But right around the time I started my Telegram channel was when I learned about it and I made that my picture on my channel. I
Oh
just
yeah,
changed it today to my face because I thought, well, I probably should do that. That's more timely now. But I've had it that for years
yeah,
because it just fascinated me that it's the heartbeat of Earth.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
struggle frequently how to explain that to people. Like I feel like I understand the concept and I can read the charts a little bit,
Hmm.
but I struggle explaining it in relative terms.
Well,
So
it's funny you'd say that, because when I agreed to come on here, I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then I realized I don't know how to explain it either. Like, I know what it is, but I don't want to say anything that's like incorrect, you know, so that, because
I
there's
know.
a lot of misconception out there about this thing,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of compounded error. So like somebody will say one thing and then someone else picks it up and then they add their own error to it. And the next thing you know, you have this giant ball of garbage.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, there's a lot of that going around, but even I noticed that, you know, there's like the same 2 or 3 pictures of how the Schumann activates in the cavity underneath the ionosphere in everybody's articles out there. And the articles most of
That's
the time
true.
say the same thing, you know,
Mhm.
and it's like, okay, that's not what we're after. Like you
Yeah,
trying
you
to
don't need to
understand
regurgitate it.
something.
What are
Yeah.
we
And
adding to it? Mhm.
well, so okay, so how do I even want to say this? Because I had come up with a way to explain it, and then I was like, no, that's too complicated. So I was going to talk, and if I say something that doesn't make sense, just stop me.
Okay.
Okay, so what the Schumann resonance is, you didn't even ask me that, did you? But here we go.
No,
Okay,
but that's good. We have to start there, and then
well, we
we
do,
can expand and look at the charts, but we have to start with the basic concept because
yeah,
people have heard the term, but then explaining it.
yeah.
Go, and
Not,
I'm gonna look over here and make sure people don't have questions.
please do,
And
yeah.
thank you, Lance, for the 1,000 gold pills. Good to see you, friend.
Okay, so in between the surface of the Earth and up about, I've seen different numbers, so this is not, it's not like there's a hard and fast wall up there, but about 30 to 60 miles above the surface of the Earth, the
Mhm.
ionosphere starts.
Right.
Now, I had heard that the Schumann is in the ionosphere. It's not, okay? It happens in the cavity here between the Earth and the ionosphere.
Okay,
So,
so it's actually closer to us.
yes,
It's not
yes,
far away, like, that actually makes sense why it affects our bodies more. That
yeah,
makes perfect sense.
yeah. Yeah, and there's some really cool things about it. I hope I don't forget anything because I have all kind of stuff that I want to say about it. But
Well, then you'll
so
just have to come back, darling.
when I have those moments tonight and go, God, I forgot to say this thing. So in that cavity,
Mhm.
that's where these waves, really, 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 really low frequency waves, bounce around in this cavity.
Okay.
It's like a wave guide. I don't know if that
That
makes
makes
sense,
so
but a
much more
wave guide,
sense.
you know, it does what it says. It sends waves in a certain direction. So we have
Okay.
this cavity that is acting as a wave guide.
Okay.
The reason we have these Schumann resonances, and there's multiple, it's not just one. Um,
Oh, okay. I
yeah,
always think of it as one.
I know it, and I'll get to that. So
Let's see.
there are multiple.
This is why I asked you to come.
So what happens is, and this is why the guy, what's his name, Winfried Otto Schumann, in
Mhm.
the 50s
Yes.
discovered this, but he wasn't the first person to look at this, or I mean, it got named after him, but he
They're
wasn't
usually
really the,
not.
yeah.
Like, it's usually something how far back do we think this was, maybe?
Um, I probably wrote it down. Oh, 1952.
Okay.
1952 supposedly is when he sort of discovered this. But like I said, there was
Okay.
work that led up to him doing that. And
Mhm.
supposedly the reason he came up with the theory is because when you have a sphere inside of another sphere, it
Mhm.
creates electromagnetic tension, electrical tension between those two things.
That's
I
kinda
know
like
that sounds
Tesla's. That's kinda like Tesla's. Yeah,
exactly. And Tesla
okay.
worked in this line
Gotcha,
also
gotcha.
before
I'd love to do
this.
an episode on Tesla too down the
Yeah.
road.
I mean, God,
So
what didn't
much.
he
Mm,
cover and understand? So,
absolutely.
yeah, so this guy's idea was that, okay, if there's this tension that exists, then there must be a resonant frequency that occurs between those two spheres. And
Oh, okay.
he figured that would happen at around 10 hertz. Turns out it's a little bit lower than that, but he was right. There
Wasn't
is,
it is it 8? I feel like
it's
it was 8.
7.83
I
is
was
the
close.
base.
Okay,
But it fluctuates. I mean, it's a,
okay.
that's like the center of it. But there are, what do I want to say first? So that's the main one that occurs, and it gets
Mhm.
kicked off by lightning transferring between the ionosphere and the Earth. Okay, because the ionosphere
Oh, okay.
is positively charged. The Earth is negatively charged. So, and I'm sure you're already thinking about the Tesla stuff and the, all of these things, right? So the the kicker that drives this frequency is the lightning. And again, I've seen all kinds of numbers for how often this happens, but like upwards of like 50 lightning strikes per second. It's hard to even fathom that, but okay. So
Wow.
so this is constantly, this chamber, this cavity is constantly being pinged by the electricity. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes. Yes.
So it's like if you have a bell, the bell doesn't
Mhm.
ring until you hit it, right? Something has to
Right.
kick off that sound.
Right.
So what's happening with the Schumann resonance is that's what's kicking it off, and it's continuing around because the wavelength of those frequencies is so long. We're talking orders of magnitude below like the AM/FM radio band.
Oh, okay.
Like the wavelengths on these things can be like 10,000 to 100,000 kilometers.
Wow.
Okay. So that's why it resonates within that chamber, because
Mm.
it's a correlation, it's a relationship with the circumference of the earth. It's math, right? So
Okay.
some of those waves go away, they cancel each other out, but some of them line up and they resonate. So
So is it different in different parts of the hemispheres? Or does it usually kick off and reverberate all
my
the way like
understanding is that it reverberates around.
okay.
Um,
Okay. That makes sense.
mm, but then the other way to look at it is like we've got these sensors all over the world that are picking
Mhm.
up and reading these things. Most people, including myself, started out and still look at the one in Siberia.
I was gonna
It
say
was
that's
even
usually the most reliable, isn't it?
well, it not really because it's really glitchy and it picks
Oh,
up a lot of garbage. So
okay.
it's not. I I hate to even say this because I really like the Schumann and I really like looking at the Schumann, or at least the charts,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
But it's not the be all end all. And the thing is that people tend to think like, oh, it's the Schumann, and it's like, well, you're just looking at a reading of electromagnetic activity. Like, what
Mm.
if it was whatever caused that? So that lightning that's hitting
Ah,
you, that's
yeah.
affected by, okay, so that kicks off based on the density in the ionosphere. Okay. And that fluctuates based on solar radiation and other geomagnetic activity.
Oh, okay. That
So
makes sense. So,
so
like,
when
when we're
that
having the solar flares that they keep talking about and all of the
yes,
other than that pumps that up.
right. And then
Everything
that
is connected.
reinforce exactly. I wrote that on my notes somewhere. And then that pings the lightning, and then the lightning pings the Schumann, which the Schumann
Okay.
is not a thing. It's just a set of
It's a
frequencies.
reading, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, it's just resonant frequencies. So
Right.
so the main one is at 7.83. And then I think there's 8 total. But
Mm.
there's one at around like 14, one at around 21, 28, um 33. There's one closer to 50 hertz. So
Oh,
so those are all, and generally they weaken at the
okay.
higher frequencies because they're harmonics. It's the 7.83
Mm.
is like the base, and then the others are kind of like following off of that.
Kinda
Does that
like a
make
tuning fork?
Yeah. Well, and I really
Like,
want to
as far
get
as
to
the
that.
"doing" and then it goes that's it's a
Well,
terrible
so
impression.
so those different frequencies are kind of more to do with the like the math of the earth, the space of the cavity, like that stuff,
Okay.
the math in there is causing those resonances to happen.
So the ionic sphere is I mean, that stays in a stable place no matter what the toponics are for the ground. So depending on hills, lakes, all the other how it affects that,
Sure.
that would affect all the resonance. within?
Well, yes and no. I'm gonna
Like,
say a
as
lot
it's
of
I'm
yes
just
and
thinking,
no.
like, visually in my head, I'm trying to visualize it pinging or
Yeah.
how it would
Okay, and
shift
that's
and
hard
change.
because the wavelength is so long, right?
Okay. Okay.
So here's the next part of this, which I think is
Okay.
pretty cool. It's not just bouncing off, it also penetrates the earth because the frequency is so long. So you can
Okay.
actually use these. So they're in the ELF range, which stands for extremely low frequency, which
Okay.
means extremely long wavelength, right? So
Okay.
that range can actually be used to communicate to a certain extent underground. So it's
Hmm.
not just bouncing off the surface. To some extent, it also penetrates, which I think lends a little bit more weight to the idea of this being like the heartbeat of the earth. Because the thing
Yeah.
is, it's not coming from the center of the earth. It's not like the earth heart is beating and we're picking that up. It's this other phenomenon that's happening that's kind of coming from the outside in.
That makes sense.
Does it?
It does to me.
Okay, cool. Does
I'm
anybody
keeping up.
find it? Does it make sense? I'm
Yeah,
not
I
even
was I was
look into
just gonna take a look at the chat and make sure everybody's keeping up.
it. Okay. Make sure that I'm not boring anybody too. Okay,
I
so
don't think so. No.
well,
They they seem pretty happy.
okay, cool. Okay, so we've got like what causes this, right? And
Mhm.
we've got that there's um
Can it be
different
manipulated?
well, yeah. I mean, I would imagine it could be, right? Because it's already being affected by geomagnetic activity.
Yeah.
So and so maybe this is what you're getting to too. Here's the real doozy. So um Schumann found it. He was working with this
Mhm.
guy Koenig, who became sort of his protege, and did a lot of work with him, and then continued on with it.
Okay.
And he discovered that that frequency lined up with brainwaves. So and using EEG, that kind of stuff. So now you have sort of the real reason why this is important and why it resonates for people, um, is because it's overlapping with our brain states. So that 7.83 hertz falls into, I think it's technically in the alpha. Hang on.
I'll have
It's
I'd
alpha
have to
theta.
look.
I
And
have it.
thank you, Lance, for the 1,000 gold pills. He says he loves this topic, so
Oh, sweet. Okay, here we go.
Lance is in your state. He has a very interesting job. Remind me to tell you about Lance,
Okay, I will.
because if he's in your area, he'd be a fun one.
Oh,
Because
nice.
he
Okay.
works with planes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so oh, brainwaves. Right. Okay. So we know a little bit about the alpha theta states,
Yes.
I think, right? We're talking
Yes. I've
like,
talked about it before. We can
oh, good.
review it, but
Okay,
it's
so
the states that your brain is in different levels of consciousness or focus. They're categorized by theta, alpha, delta, whether you're sleeping, you're thinking, you're interacting, you're just chilling.
right.
That's
Exactly.
there's 5 of them, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe
Um,
so. That's what I'm looking at.
mhm.
I've never super studied these, but I have become kind of aware, like as I started into meditation and then looking at the Schumann overlap, it was like, oh, okay. So if we're looking at 7.83 hertz as sort of the foundational Schumann resonance, so that's why people
Mhm.
get confused. It's like, yes, there's one, but there's more. Okay,
Gotcha.
um, so the theta state goes from about 4 to 7 hertz. And that's the one that's kind of associated with like being in deep meditation, or that place when you're like in
Yeah.
between awake and asleep, and where you kind of
Mhm.
have those aha moments,
It's
that kind
also
of
where you're most suggestible too. That's the one where you
yes.
have to be really careful what's around or what you're listening to or watching when you hit that state, because that's
Yeah.
when you can get subliminal interpretations. You don't even
Yes.
realize it's happening. That's
Yes.
part of the programming. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we could do a whole nother show on.
I know you and I can go down all kinds of rabbit holes.
Yeah. Well, somebody have to dig us out eventually. So and then the alpha state goes from about 7 to 12 hertz.
Mhm.
And that one is like when you're awake and alert, but you're relaxed, like
Mhm.
you're in a pretty healthy state,
Mhm.
kind of ready to learn. Um, so so this frequency sitting at around 7.8 is significant because it's kind of on the cusp of both of those.
Mm.
And what I think, I guess this is, I don't know that I've seen this anywhere, but my thought is, okay, so if the Earth is pulsing at 7.83 hertz,
Mhm.
and we find ourselves in a happy, relaxed, meditative state at around that,
Mhm.
then doesn't that give a scientific link to why getting in touch with nature is good for you and
Why it's
tuning
good
into the earth is good
grounding
for
and
you? It
yeah.
grounds you. Yeah. So I don't think it's the be all end all of everything, but to me, that makes an awful lot of sense. So, um, and then there's the reverse of that, right? So we're
Mhm.
thinking, okay, so if we're in tune with the earth, then can we affect the Schumann? And that's probably another question. And I think that's when it gets real carried away. Like people
Okay.
see something like, I did that. I'm like, no, I don't think you did. But
One hot tamale asked if temperature has a lot. She thinks that temperature has a lot to do with resonance factors.
I it does, but from my understanding, where the temperature really comes into play is the temperature of the ionosphere based on the solar radiation that's coming in, that's then affecting that density.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's like a knock on effect. But yes, so they do find that the resonances and the pinging of these things follows day and night patterns, right?
Mhm.
Between dark and light, hot and cold, and seasonal
Mhm.
patterns. So yes, that comes into play.
So I
Um,
because it's such a long wave, that keeps the consistency even at least fairly consistent with all the other variables, I would assume, by
I
design, but because it's so long, because
Yeah,
otherwise it would be pinging like I was originally visualizing.
yeah. I mean,
So
it's a whole different thing from, like I said, the other areas on the electromagnetic spectrum. I mean, we are
mhm.
talking way, 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 way low with extremely, and
Yeah,
that's why it wasn't until like the 60s that they were able to actually measure it or find things that were,
with the
that they
tools.
could make the equipment to pull it from the background noise,
That
because
makes
this is a
sense.
whole other thing than what we're talking. I mean, when you're looking at like your radio and radar and microwave, you're talking kilohertz and megahertz and gigahertz, right? We're talking
Right.
hertz, 7.83 hertz. Like that is so much different than these other frequencies. That
Okay.
said, so as I was looking at this and trying to like really get my head around it, we know that everything is frequency,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So a lot of people tend to think like, what is this thing that I'm talking about? Like this frequency, this
Mhm.
wave, this whatever it is. And I mean, when it comes down to it, it's just a measurement of a frequency, because everything is on an electromagnetic spectrum.
Yeah.
You are, the computer is,
Right.
the house is, so I don't think it even has a beginning and an end. Like we're trying to quantify these spaces on this electromagnetic frequency spectrum and
Mhm.
give them names, and it's like, well, okay, but we're just parsing out little bits of what is really this grand
This grand
theory
piece.
of everything, right? And then we can get into talking about the ether and all of that stuff. But
That's good.
I did. Oh, so here's what I actually want to bring this up. So I think a lot of people are aware of this, but to me, it's kind of, I told it to my son and he was like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." Okay, so they did this experiment. There's a guy named Weaver, German guy.
Okay.
Um, and they put people in a bunker underground, and they completely shielded it from any EM frequency. Like it was hermetically sealed and shielded. So they're underground,
Oh, okay.
cut off from all frequency input, also from the
Like a
sun.
Faraday.
Yeah, yeah,
They
like
had a
they're in this,
Faraday.
I don't know
Gotcha.
what they use, but apparently they were isolated, and they were
Gotcha.
isolated from all frequencies, including the frequency of the earth.
Hmm.
Okay, so they put them in there for a
Hmm.
month, and they started having problems, as you might imagine, right?
Yeah.
Headaches, emotional problems. Of course, their circadian rhythms got completely out of whack.
Yeah,
And so
they would be
I'm
a
reading
mess.
this, and I'm kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, you're underground, like you're away from the sun, you're away from the moon, and all of those pulling things. So what I found the most interesting then, though, was they were still underground, and they added back in that Schumann resonance, that frequency, and the
Oh.
problems cleared up. So to me,
Hmm.
that says an
That says a
awful lot,
lot.
you know.
Yeah. Hmm.
And interestingly enough, I've seen a lot of things out there. I mean, when you look on the internet, you can find anything that says anything. You know, like I agree with it, I don't agree with it.
Yeah, you can find anything to satisfy your little heart. True. Make you
Sure.
feel cozy.
And I have found quite a few things that say either the Schumann is bunk or that it has no effect on humans. And I even saw something that wasn't written even all that long ago that said there's absolutely no evidence that shows that the Schumann resonance has any biological effect on humans. I'm like, yeah, there is. There's tons of it. There's tons of it because people have
Yeah.
actually done experiments and
Yep.
looked at these things. So and then I don't know if it was that article or another one went on to say, oh, and by the way, there's no such thing as a human biofield. I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm not reading this anymore because it's personal. I mean, you can take a freaking picture of it, for God's sake, like it's there. So so anyway, it just goes to show, like, just because you can't see something doesn't
Doesn't
mean
mean it's
it
not
isn't
there.
there. And that's the thing. When we're talking about these kind of waves, like, you can't hear that, you can't
No.
see that. It's so far outside of the spectrums of things that we can hear, see, touch, whatever. But
Hmm.
I think we can sense it, or we can at least sense something that has to do with it, because I know you've seen,
Hmm.
you get super hyped up and you get a big burst of energy, and then you look at the
Yep.
Schumann chart and there's a big old blast
There's a
going on.
spike. And there's been times when I just out of the blue had spiked headaches. And
Yeah.
I mean, for no reason, like there's no change in my environment, my temperament. I wasn't talking to, I wasn't watching any, like there was nothing to make me emotionally upset.
Right.
And
I
I'll
was like,
go
"What
and
is
look at the
this?"
Schumann,
Yeah.
and there's a particular spike that it does that I tend to get headaches on.
Mhm.
I
And
learned that because I just kept seeing it over and over, and I'm like, this is getting creepy.
yeah, well, because when you look at it enough and it happens enough that you're like, "Huh, okay," and then you start finding out that other people are having similar things happen, like a bunch of people will have, the headaches or be in a good mood or a bad mood all of a sudden. It's like, where is this coming from? Now, I don't know for sure that it's what's going on in the Schumann. I mean, and I want to make sure I come back to this thought, but when you see it enough times and you're experiencing it yourself,
Right.
something is going on, and you see, I
Right.
mean, we're talking hundreds, if not thousands of times seeing these correlations for
Hmm.
ourselves. And so I guess what I would hope is that even if somebody's listening to this and they could give a crap about the Schumann or any frequency stuff or whatever, the real message, I think, is if this awareness gets people to start looking at their own experience, their own feelings, their
Hmm.
own body, because we've become so detached from the body that it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I mean, I think that's
Yeah.
at the root of a lot of the illness in our
I
society.
agree. I
Yeah. So
agree.
if this sparks somebody to just start paying attention to how you feel, that
Hmm.
will make a huge difference.
Yeah.
And how you feel, not how somebody else is telling you that spike on the Schumann is supposed to make you feel. Right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of that out there. It's like, oh, you'll get this happens if that happens. And
Yeah,
I'm
if you
like,
see this spike, then that
oh,
relates to this emotion. Well, everybody is different,
and everybody's going
literally.
through different things. Yeah. And if
Mhm.
that, so here's the other thing. And I wanna say this, and this was the thing I want to come back to, is
Yeah.
it's one of the things that's being really misunderstood. There is a, I don't want to call it a belief. It might be true. I don't know. There's a theory out there that the Schumann resonance has been rising over the last few decades.
Is it
Now,
like climate change?
well, you know what I think it is. I think it's kind of
I
a little
couldn't
bit of
resist.
wishful thinking, yeah, and a little bit is just not understanding. Okay,
Mm.
the frequency of the Schumann cannot change. It happens at, let's just call it just that 7.83 for now and not get
Mhm.
complicated with the other ones. Okay,
Okay.
that's it. That's where it occurs. And then at 14 and 21 and whatever. Okay. That doesn't change. What
Mhm.
changes when you get in influx is it gets activated at that frequency. The vibrations happening there are, it's almost like it gets louder. You can't hear it, right? It
Mhm.
would be like, what would it be like? It would be like hitting a bell, right? You
Mhm.
tap it lightly and it's at a certain frequency.
Mhm.
You can hear that. If you hit it harder, it's still at the same frequency. It's just louder because the amplitude of that wave
Okay.
is bigger. So that's what's happening when you're seeing the spikes on the chart. And I guess we'll
So
to pull
what
that
would
up.
cause that? It would be the solar atmosphere, like the atmosphere above us would be. So I
That's
guess
the lightning strikes coming. So if you
okay.
get, and other things, but that's the main one. So if you get enough of that driving force, almost like think of it as like the little thing you hit the bell with, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
The driving force is coming in such
Okay.
a way that it's making that ringing bigger, but it's
Okay.
still at the same frequency. Does
Have
that
they
make sense?
done any experiments on how humans like, if you put a group of humans together and if they were focusing or doing different things, if they could influence it?
I, you
I'm
know,
just curious.
yeah, I think so. I don't know specifically. Like I can't say, oh, they've done it or they haven't done it. But there is the Heart Math Institute, and
Okay.
they are. I think they call it the. There's a couple different things going on. I think theirs is called the Global Coherence Initiative, um, where they're looking. So they, in their terms,
This is what you were telling me about, right?
yeah, but I was telling you about the
Okay.
shoe one. So this one, this one I think has more credence to
Honesty?
it. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I think. I mean, I wouldn't bet my life on it because I don't bet my life on anything
I
anymore.
hear you.
But so I don't know if people are familiar with what they do, but they're looking at the heart rate variability. So
Okay.
and using that, so it's basically like the steadiness of people's heartbeats,
Hmm.
using that to gauge the level of coherence that they're operating at.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
they're also trying to tie that globally by, they've got sensors all over the world that they're then using to take readings and then
Mhm.
look at, you know, is the are people coming into more coherence?
Yeah.
So I mean, I
Sometimes I
don't know
think
all
we
the
are.
ins and outs, but sorry,
Sometimes
what?
I don't.
I know, right?
Like,
But
some days
they,
I'm like, "Yeah," and then other days I'm like, "Oh god."
yeah, I know. It well, and the thing is too, it's like, okay, you mentioned tuning forks, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna get all spiritual on you for a second. Okay.
Ooh.
So you know that when you've got a tuning fork that's tuned to say like 440 hertz, right?
Mhm.
And then you've got another one that's the same. They're the same, right? And you've got them near each other. And you ping one and get it to ring. it
And the
will
other one.
cause the other one to start ringing,
Mhm.
right? So that's kind of what we're talking about with this Schumann stuff and humans and,
Mhm.
how it's related. Because when you're at the same frequency, when you're operating on the same frequency, guess what happens? You can share information, right? So like
Right.
when you're vibing with somebody, and
Exactly.
you're actually, you are, because you're actually starting to communicate using telepathy and your biofield and everything else.
Mm.
Okay. So the tuning forks, that's how that works, right? So the
Mhm.
resonance happens because something is kicked off near something else that's close. It doesn't have to be exact. It has to be close enough that it'll make the other one go, hey, hey, that works for me. I am ring with, so so here's the thing, and this is why I always say, I know you've probably heard me say it a gazillion times or seen me write it on my channel, right? Follow the resonance.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you, as a human with a spark of God inside of you, you are tuned to things that are true. You
Yeah.
are truth. You are love. That is what you are at the core of you. Now, it's gotten covered over with layer after layer of bullshit, but at the core of you, sorry, I was trying
Nope.
not to swear. At the core of you is truth, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so you know how when you get goosebumps, or Ash calls them truth bumps, right? When
Yeah.
someone says something to you or you
Mhm.
read something that you're just like, oh
Yeah,
my
you
god,
get that little
that's
tingles.
it.
Mhm.
That's you resonating. Your body is a tuning fork, okay? And it cannot lie to you. Your brain can lie to you all day long, and it will. Your body can't. So when it's doing that, it's because you are picking up something that's true. It can also happen when you're picking up something that's like a threat to you, right? Like
Yeah.
fear, you know.
Yep.
I'm not saying that fear is a true thing to resonate with. What I'm saying is the reason it's important to pay attention to that is because that is your body telling you something true that
Mhm.
is near you, that is a threat to you, and
And
it's
it's
trying to
protective
warn you.
instinct. It's
Yeah,
your body's fight or flight that I mean, that's what protects us, and we're
it
frequently taught to
does.
ignore it,
Yeah, yeah, and oh,
especially
like,
now.
yeah, oh, don't let your feelings get in the way. Don't be silly. You tell
Mhm.
somebody, oh, I just have a gut feeling, I don't want to get on that plane
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah,
Well,
and then a door flies off lately. That's
yeah, right. Yeah, it's like you got to fly with super glue now. So I mean, I used to fly for a living, and
I know.
dude, it is like the last thing on my list to do anymore. No, thank you.
I don't blame you.
It's not that I have a fear of flying; it's that I have a fear of people who are, maintaining the planes and making the decisions. So anyway,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm with you.
tangent. Okay,
No?
so I really wanted to hit that point about the tuning
Mhm.
forks and about you as an individual and how important it is to get back to being able to feel that resonance,
Yeah.
because it is the thing. It's how our world works. It's what we're talking about with the earth and the Schumann and the tuning forks and the,
Mhm.
God knows what, the radio stations,
Oh, I
all of
know.
it. I mean, you can get into the whole discussions about timelines and dimensions and everything else, right?
Hell, I'd just love to have a conversation about EMF, you
Right.
know? Like, as far as and that's why I was saying about because this is where my mind goes when I was asking, "Can it be manipulated? Can the Schumann be manipulated?" Because I was thinking about EMF, 5G, it's in that same level, and as
Hmm.
they're cranking it up,
So yeah,
could that mess with it?
so I don't think it messes with the Schumann. What it
Okay.
does, it messes with your ability
Yeah, because
to
I
to
mean, there's a
entrain
lot of
with
people
it.
I know that
Yeah.
have very negative effects from they're putting gifs of the angry lady that was in the plane going, That's not real," since we were talking about it, the doors they're
Not real.
you're cracking me up, Duppy. "That MFR is not real."
Love it.
God, that will never not be funny.
I know, I must have watched it like 100 times.
I know.
And then, you watch it again, like somebody sends it again, you're like, "Yeah, I'll watch it again."
I loved the people at Halloween that were dressing up like her, and then they were doing skits.
Mhm. I mean, it's kind of universally applicable. You know, you can make that work
I
all over
know.
the place. Okay,
Oh, but yes,
so
EMF, okay.
oh right, so interference, right?
Mhm,
So okay, so and this is kind of common sense, but I don't know if we give it enough credence. Like if you live in a city and you're
mhm,
surrounded by noise, EMF noise,
right.
it's going to affect your ability to pick up and resonate with the frequency of the earth, right? And probably
Yep.
about a zillion other frequencies that are beneficial to you that you're, you know, that are getting jacked up because of I guess what I'm saying is I don't think this particular frequency is like the be all end all of keeping everybody healthy or everything else. I think it's important, and I think it ties us to the earth.
Yes.
Um but we get messed up all over the place. And I mean, I know you know this, so the
Mhm.
5G and I mean,
Mm.
even your refrigerator and anything that you have
Yep.
plugged in, all of these things are interference, which is why it's so important to do what you can to
Mhm.
mitigate that. I mean, when we moved, we were living in England, and we were in this house that was, why does my messages keep going? Sorry, I turned it
It's
off. Okay. So we were in this place where we had like a black hole of cell coverage, which I thought was great. Everybody was like, "Oh, we need to get a, you know, cell coverage." I was like, "Are you nuts?" So, and the houses were pretty far apart. So we had like our router, and that
Ah,
was it. And then we moved
nice.
back here to California, and I've got everybody's junk around me, you know, all of their
Mhm.
signals and all of the cell towers and everything. And I tell you, I started getting sick almost immediately
I
when we
bet.
moved here.
Once
So
you detox and pull that out,
yeah,
you feel like you're extraordinarily sensitive to it, and you build up a tolerance. At least that's
yeah.
how I've been.
Well, and
But yeah.
when you get cleaned up in all kinds of ways, whether it's EMF or
Mhm.
clearing the toxins out of your body, you know, it's all related. But when you get cleaned up, all of a sudden you can't tolerate the input of crud. You know, like you used to, because your pool was dirty, right? So if your pool's already
Right.
clean and somebody pees in it, you're not even going to notice because it's already nasty. But if it's pristine clean and then a toxin ends up in there, it makes a big difference. And by then you've sort of recalibrated to just not being able to tolerate the garbage. So anyway, I don't remember where we were going with that, but I
Mm,
do want to say, oh, should we talk about reading the Schumann, or should we talk about
we can.
mitigating EMF stuff?
Yeah. A
What would
question had come up in the chat, so I just copied it and put it in there so you and I would see it and we would be able to get it answered. We can move wherever you want in the
Well,
discussion.
no, I think let's do that, because I know, and you had mentioned too that people want to know about how to read the Schumann. So
Yes.
okay, so let's
What do you
pull
want me
up.
to pull up?
Could you pull up that picture of which one do we want to use?
Because
How
I
about
have
the
do you
the
want the one that
Russian
has the
one?
sharp spikes or the one that's more steady?
I think. Do you have the one with the colors on the side?
I do.
Let's do that one.
You got it.
I don't remember if it has a decent signal on it, but I guess we'll figure it out.
We'll learn it.
Is that clear? Because oh, okay, cool. All
Here, let
right.
me put this underneath. Maybe that'll be easier to read it. There we go.
Okay. So for the first thing, this is the kind of the most common one that people see. This is the one from Tomsk, Siberia, from the space observatory there.
Mhm.
Um, there's a lot of confusion about it sometimes, because like when you see at the bottom that that's the time on the x-axis is time, and
Mhm.
that's in Siberia time. Most of the other charts that you'll see are on the universal time clock. So this one's a little bit different.
Okay.
Um, and then the y-axis is the frequencies. So I put the hermeticus.net. There's good information on there. And that's the one that does like the Schumann bot. I don't know if you've seen
Mhm.
that. It'll do like postings. But I put their tag, not because this is where this came from, but they added the color scale on these frequency
The color is helpful for me.
Yeah, so
Very
that's
helpful.
not on, like, when you go to the actual site to see what the Schumann is doing, that it won't have that on there. And it won't have these delineations. So first thing to understand is that the hertz goes from small to higher number. Okay, so it's like top to bottom.
Mhm.
And the chart reads from right to left. So it covers 3 days, but the newest information is always going to be coming in on the right.
Okay.
So
Because that's where
that's
we
the
usually
first
see
thing.
the blackouts
Yeah.
when there's glitches or
Glitches, but then also
whatever.
during the day, the whole graph will shift and there will be a big black space out
Okay.
front of it. So that
As in
happens
okay.
regularly. That's just, I mean, there are blackouts too, but a lot of times people will see that and they think it's a blackout. And it's like, no, it's on the right time. It's just, it
It's just
shifted it
shifting.
over.
Okay.
It's like maybe in preparation to fill it in for the day or something. I
Okay.
don't know. And I don't speak Russian. So the site is in Russian. So, a lot of this is figuring stuff out. So you can see this, the red lines, the red horizontal lines are marking those
Mhm.
Schumann resonances. And the
Mhm.
main one is that first one there. I've actually seen that maybe there's one underneath that, but we won't go into that. Doesn't matter. Okay. So that same one at 7.83 hertz. And you can see across the graph how you've got in the green, you've got like horizontal delineations near those lines, right?
Right. Right.
That's because those are the resonant frequencies. That's where those things are happening at those frequencies. Um, the red line that's been added is just to sort of point it out, but you can see those harmonics on the graph. Off to the right, that color scale is showing you that blue is like the standard background baseline,
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
Um, the green is, an elevated amplitude, right? Like we were talking about the bell and like ringing it louder.
Mhm.
That's what's happening. Those particular frequencies are being excited and pinging.
Okay.
We'll use the word pinging. Okay, so and then when you see these vertical spikes of like the white and the red,
Right.
that's because it was happening at that time, right? So you look down to the bottom, you're like, oh, at whatever that says, I don't know,
Yeah,
11
I can't even hardly read
hours,
it.
we had a spike. And it shows on that little color graph, the white is the highest amplitude, right? So when we're
Okay.
getting white, I always say we're getting dosed, right? Like we're getting hit with a
You're
lot of
getting a lot
energy.
of juice.
Yeah. I mean, that's just how I look at it. And that the spikes tend to be when, at least for me, I notice, physical symptoms, emotional symptoms. But also when we go for long periods of time without a hit,
Mhm.
I kind of tend to feel low. So
Yeah.
and that's just me. And honestly, like, take it or leave it, figure it out for yourself. But for me, that's what has happened. And like I said, I've been watching it for years. So this one I think is one of the easiest to read.
Okay.
However, I've been trying to incorporate into what I'm doing, looking more at kind of some of those heart map spectrograms. Theirs look different, but it's the same basic principle. And then, oh shoot, what was I going to say? I was going to say something. I don't know. I lost it.
Do you
Oh
want me to
no,
show the one with the spikes?
no, it's fine. Unless you want to, and we can. The what I wanted to say is, so solar storms and solar radiation and stuff affects that ionosphere, right? It
Mhm.
also, like we were talking about the density and all that. Well, that also affects us. We also feel those. It's not like the ionosphere like blocks it out and then we don't experience that electromagnetic activity, because everything is electromagnetic. Everything. So when I
Yeah.
say electromagnetic activity, it just means something is happening in the waves that we live in. So that the other thing that I find has a direct correlation, and sometimes more than looking at the Schumann, is looking at when we're having solar storms, flares. CME's kind of that tends to take more time before it hits. But you know, sometimes we'll be getting an influx of something and it's not on the Schumann because it hasn't affected the Schumann yet, or it might not affect it. Like it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. So the other thing to look at, I guess what I'm saying is to look at some of the space weather and the geomagnetic storms, and
I was
that
wondering because
see
everybody's I don't know why it's echoing. Hang on.
Am I echoing?
No, it's me.
Oh, okay.
And I have no idea why it suddenly started.
And I saw you had that other graph up. We can talk about that if you want. I think it just showed some bigger spikes.
I'm going to stop sharing for a second and that
Yeah, no
eliminate
worries.
the echo.
Okay.
So I think is it next week, 10 days from now, there's the big solar eclipse and all the media's been panicking.
Yeah,
I'm kind of like, are we predictive programming here, folks? What are we doing? Because
probably.
last time I
Honestly, I'm
checked, an
so
eclipse didn't knock your cell towers out.
yeah, I mean, I
That's new. I've never seen
yeah,
that.
all of this stuff like, oh, make sure you've got the food and water. And I was like, I've had food and water for years, dude. Like I'm not like nothing. And honestly, it's not that I don't care. It's just that I don't care. Whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen, and I'm not gonna get my panties in a twist over any of it because
Yeah.
I mean anybody who's been on this road for a while went through the and eventually
Yeah.
you're just like, okay, I'm done. I'm
It's
done,
so true.
getting worked up about stuff because I mean, everything happens exactly as it's supposed to, exactly when it's supposed to, and I got
That is
no
true.
problem with that. And whatever happens, I'll be okay. So, so yeah, I don't know. They're making a big deal out of it. I mean,
Yeah.
it
I
might, it
mean,
might be a big deal, but I don't think so.
they keep talking about solar flares knocking it out and doing all this and geostorms and all these things. And I always just question once you understand who runs the narratives, who
Mm-hmm.
drives the narratives,
Mm-hmm.
you start questioning, okay, what are you covering up? At least
Yeah,
that's where my
absolutely.
mind goes, you
Oh,
know.
yeah, mine too. And the thing is like I I don't even know what I think anymore about what this stuff is coming in and they call it this. And I don't know. I
I
don't know.
know.
But I also have lost the need to know and to be able to say, well, this is this and this is this. And it's like, it is what it is,
Yeah.
like, so I, I just think that the more people can learn to like reset their own compasses,
Mhm.
so that you're tuning in to how you feel, not how anybody else is telling you that you're supposed to feel. I mean, I'm sure this has happened to you with watching the Schumann, right? Like
Mhm.
you will feel a certain way and you will
Yep.
know that there is a spike or that particular one that you're talking about that gives you the headache. And
Mhm.
you go and look, and there it is. Because you already knew because of how you felt, and nobody else can really explain that to you. But once you see it and you start to find, say, find the edges of what that feels like, you're like,
Mhm.
okay, and then the external input isn't even that important anymore. It can help. I mean, it's nice to kind of have confirmation. And I think you need that for a while, kind of like training wheels. But eventually, you just kind of get to the point where you're like, well, if something's wrong, I'll know.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll know. And then I'll figure out what to do. So,
I think that's, another way to think of it, like, if you have friends and maybe you haven't talked to them for a while, but all of a sudden they're on your mind
mm-hmm.
and you feel compelled to call and check on them,
Yeah.
and then you find out something's happened or good or bad, it can be either way, but I always just think of all these little things, how we're all connected, and we've been dulled down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is there anything you would recommend for people that I'm trying to think how to like if they wanted to do a clearing of I guess, resonance or electromagnetic type influence? Like, how would you clear that out? Like, if you feel like you're gunked up with that, you know what I
Like
mean?
in your body. Yeah. So for the EMF interference and the noise, you really just have to get away from it. You have to get shielded. You have to turn it off. Turn off your router at night if you're using a router. Put it on a timer so that it shuts off at midnight or whatever, so that at least you get a break. Don't have your phone in your room.
Mhm.
All of that. Some people go so far as to shut off the breakers in their house or shut off the breakers to where they sleep,
Wow.
so that because when you have electricity running through a wire,
Mhm.
we can talk about the validity of that
Well,
too.
yeah,
But anyway,
because
you've got an
it's still
electromagnetic field.
running in the walls. It's
Yeah.
still running in the walls behind your bed.
Mhm.
You may not
Right.
have anything plugged in, but it's still running. The current is
Right.
still there.
Right. Right. So, I mean, some people go really far and some people get really sick, so I'm not
Yeah.
saying you shouldn't take it this far, but there are things like, there's EMF blocking paint. There's silver netting you can put over your bed and sheets and stuff you can put
Mhm.
under. The caution, and I learned about this when I had the Lyme disease, so I haven't thought about this in a while, but the caution that I was given then was that you also run the risk of trapping things in with you and bouncing around in there. So like if you make a shielded room, but you're not actually, but you've got some input inside of there, it's just whatever you've got is just going to bounce around in there with you.
How do you do that?
Well, if
How
you
do
had
you
like a
how do
phone in
you
there, or you didn't turn
I'm
the,
just
the wiring off in your house, or
but you still
whatever.
have your Oh, okay. That makes
Or
sense.
like, let's say you live in an apartment and you thought, oh, I got this
Oh,
great idea. I'm going to paint all my walls. I'm going to paint all my walls with this EMF shielding paint, right? And pay all the money to do it. Floor, or not floors, ceiling, walls, right? But then
mhm,
there's nothing shielding your floor. So then
right.
everything that's coming up from underneath you is now bouncing around in that cavity that you've just created in
Oh,
your living
yeah.
space, right? So anyway, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just saying, like, so
Yeah,
for,
it's
so for that
just
kind of
thought.
toxicity, the best thing is you need to get away from it. Or even if it's just you go on vacations or take yourself to the river or the beach or the forest or something where you can
Mhm.
clear your system, take your shoes off, stick your feet in the ground,
Yeah.
and kind of like reset everything. Any of that will help. You don't have to get it perfect, but any like step that you take in that direction will help.
Mhm.
And then there are even like crystals that you can use that supposedly block and help negate EMF.
The Shoegate, right? The
Yeah,
Shoegate
shungite. I got one right here.
Shungite.
Shungite.
I've got some.
Shungite.
I've
Yeah, this is a raw one.
I
It's
keep
got
it
some
here in
pyrite
front
in
of
it.
because I
Yeah.
have so much electrical things, I have a whole thing full of it here. Try and
And
deflect
I've
any of
got
it
an,
I
an ENF meter, but I haven't actually taken it out to really like test these because
can.
you know what, I think they work. So okay then.
Yeah.
I don't want to know if it's not working. Uh, that's not really true. That's not really true. But there's another really good one called Indigo Gabbro. The
Oh, I haven't heard of that
sort of
one.
like the sort of, well, you might have heard they call it what do they call it? Mystical Merlinite. But that one
Oh, that's
actually is,
fancy.
yes, particularly good for dealing with EMF interference.
Okay.
What else? Black tourmaline,
Yeah.
pyrite. I mean, there are a
Yeah.
lot, and there are a lot of things
There's a
you
lot of
can
options, like yeah.
do. And
Just
again, that stuff comes down to what works for you, and
yeah.
if it's working for you, you don't need to go around and tell everybody that like, and get their opinion on it. If it's working for you, do you need to know anything else? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, do you really want to open yourself up to somebody calling you a whack job because you got a rock next to your computer? Like, if it's working for you, great. Because so
Mhm.
much of our world is what we believe anyway. Well, not, I say believe, but I'm pointing to my head, but it's really your heart that does the work.
Yeah.
So if you are going through all of the emotions and you find something that you're like, man, this is it. Like, this is the thing. It's working for me. I feel better. I'm digging it.
Mhm.
Great. it's
Yeah.
then that is working for you. You don't need anybody else's input to that equation, because that's going to alter your belief about it, which then will can mess up the whole thing. So
Thank you, Lance, for the 1,000 gold pills. Appreciate you. Thank you. Trying to see if they've got any other questions. They're talking about other stuff.
oh,
They're having a fun discussion about the Earth,
that
like
happens.
the layers, and I haven't kept up with all that. I'm focused. Um, I wonder, like, when we're talking about what works for us, because so many of us have different layers of like autoimmune conditions and chronic
Mhm.
this and that. So I often think a lot of the like maybe a little shoe guide works for me, and I have a bracelet that is charged
Mhm.
that helps with that,
Mhm.
and that keeps my headaches away. That's
Mhm.
enough to do it for me because
Yeah.
that's what worked. I got
Yeah.
an EMF detector and I wandered around my house and figured out where all the hot spots were and I layered them
Mhm.
up
Mhm.
and I got better.
Yeah.
But I think when we're talking about all of these things affecting our body, I think everybody needs to always remember and be conscious that all of us are completely different and we're all dealing with different health things. So some
Mhm.
people need more, some people don't need it much, some may not really feel it. Maybe they're really grounded. Maybe they don't have all the gunk that we do.
Right. And it
So,
can change from day to day too.
oh,
So
that's not comforting, TR.
I know. Sorry.
It's not comforting at all.
Okay, pretend I didn't say it. Just take it out there. It's just nothing is static. Like it's just not. And every time you get yourself into a spot where you're like, man, this is it. I got it all figured out. Okay,
Right.
good. Enjoy it while it lasts. Because it's gonna change, you know? But I mean, truly, but that also holds true for when things are going to shit and you're miserable. And
Mhm.
it's like, okay, well, it's gonna change. The
Yeah.
only thing that's constant is that it's always changing. So, you know.
Yeah. That was one of the things one of the experiments where I wanna call it, was it the double slit? You know what I mean? Where
Oh yeah, the
they had
particles.
the
Yeah.
particles and then they would check on them and the particles would reform and then they
Yeah,
would
and it
break
was like if you
apart.
were looking at it, it would.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm like, if everything is always in motion, we shouldn't be afraid of change. And
Mhm.
that really struck for me to
Mhm.
just I don't always have to embrace it, I don't have to like it, but I just have to accept that we're in constant change.
Yep.
Everything around us is stability is an illusion, and once I really grasped onto that, I was able to calm down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, a lot less irritated me and, like, I was just like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
It's a form of
okay."
what you're saying is like it's that form of acceptance, of just like,
Yes.
okay, okay,
Yes.
I know it's gonna change. And and it's back to that thing we were just saying about how, like being in the now, right? So like
Mhm.
if you're having a good time, enjoy the hell out of it
Yeah.
because it will
Yeah.
change, you know? And that's okay. But I think, most of us were brought up, and I just want to say, I love that you're doing this podcast, the stuff that we should have learned, because so
Mhm.
many of us are in this state now of just going, oh my God, if I'd only known, if someone had
Right.
told me. Well, we didn't. So now we have to make our own Montessori and like, structure our lives differently. But oh crap, I forgot what I was gonna say again. Shit. I honestly did lose it. It'll come back.
It makes me feel
Um,
better I'm not the only one that does it.
no, some days I'm better than others. Something must be off. Maybe my rocks are in the wrong place here. I don't know. Uh,
Yep.
oh, something about what we wish we had learned. I don't
I
know.
like to think that maybe because I think a lot of my audience is our age maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm hoping that maybe some of these shows will be good for them to share with their kids or grandkids or
Mm-hmm.
just so it can reach a younger demographic, because that would be the best thing to me.
Right.
Not only are we reaching our group, but if I can save someone that's younger some of
Right.
the crap that I had to go through and the growing pains, then I would love
Mm.
that. If
Yeah,
they can
and I
have this material 20 years earlier than I found it,
Mhm. Mhm.
what could
And
they do with it?
and that, that's the thing too, is I think that's why and I say we and people like us, we figure stuff out, and we
Mhm.
feel compelled to share it. I don't know about
Yeah,
you, but I ain't getting a
yeah,
paycheck for what I do, but I
not
do
really.
it because I know, and especially when I started, I was very keenly aware that I had information that other people did not have, you know,
Mm,
and it's like, okay, well, they need it, and I had to
right.
learn to not try to like force it down anybody's throat who wasn't ready for it. But
That's a struggle because you get so frustrated, you wish you could shake them
yeah,
and
because
say,
you want to
"No, but
help,
you need this. You need this
yeah,
information." And they're
yeah,
like, "No, no, I'm good." And I'm like,
yeah. I mean, just the drive to do that is huge.
it
It's
is
like I
compelling. I
it,
That's
it
how I frequently describe, like, I'm compelled to do this.
yeah,
I'm not gonna get rich or famous, nor do I want to, but I'm
right,
compelled to do this.
yeah, and I feel the same way. And when this kind of started, it was like, okay, it wasn't how am I going to make money, or how am I going to, it was just like, no, this is what is happening right now.
Yeah,
And for me that was pretty wild, because I had always sort of lived my life in, I was like, well, this makes sense, so let's do the thing that makes sense, and let's do the next thing that makes
let's
sense,
do the
and
safe
all of a sudden it was
choices.
like, nothing makes sense. All right, let's just start over. Oh, that's what I was going to say. That's what I
Ah,
was going to say when I lost my train of thought, was that we have spent so much time being afraid, right?
oh, yeah.
So, and it was because you were talking about the stability, right? Like, we want the
Mhm.
stability because it feels safe,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
except it's
It's a
just a
trap.
perception. It's an illusion. You cannot have that, and you cannot keep it. But
Well, and you
we
can't grow.
trying, you
You just
know.
wind up, at least that's how I always felt, like, yeah, I was safe, but I was stagnant.
Mhm.
I wasn't
Yeah.
moving forward. I wasn't growing. I
Mhm.
wasn't challenging myself physically or intellectually.
Mhm.
Some people need one or the other, some people need both. I need more mental stimulation.
Yeah,
That's how I thrive.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
oh, me too. I mean, I'm just that's what I do, just
yeah,
constant, like
like
gorging
constant.
on info. Um, but, that's the thing, is like we want to feel safe, and we give ourselves the illusion of being safe, but we spend so much energy doing that we don't have any left to do anything that really is important, or that we're passionate about. We use
Yeah,
up all of our juice on trying to stay safe and make sure everything's okay, and make sure this catastrophe doesn't happen and that catastrophe doesn't happen. And, next thing you know, you're not really living, because you don't have any energy to live, because you're using it all on being afraid.
yeah, yeah. I think
But
I learned a lot about that through the COVID, as far as what
Mhm,
the full total fear can take on you physically and those around you. Just
mhm.
living with that constant threat over your head, and in so many different ways, but I think that's really the best example of what fear can do to break your body down.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
absolutely will, and
It's
it makes
horrible.
you stupid. It keeps you from being able to think, because you shift into that, reptilian part of your brain, and you're just like,
Mhm.
food, shelter, that's
Right.
it.
And just to clarify for the audience, when you're referring to that, I know what you mean. There is a part, and it's the fight or flight area of the brain, but it's often referred to as the reptilian part.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah,
It
it is.
doesn't
Yeah.
doesn't mean any particular
Yeah, I
inference
wasn't
to a
calling I
different.
wasn't calling anybody a lizard.
Yeah, no, I thought, I'm gonna clarify that, because,
Yeah,
like,
no,
I knew
good
because
call.
I've studied the neuroscience, like, and
Yeah.
that was one of the things that I found fascinating, was they compared this particular area because of how you respond.
Mhm.
So, anyway,
Yeah.
moving on. I just thought I'd put that out there.
No, that's good. In fact, while you were doing that, I was sort of looking like, what else did I wanna say about the
I know.
Schumann? A lot, but pro I think we probably covered,
Quite a
like, the
bit.
big parts. Did we? Did we miss anything we wanted to cover? We talked about
I mean,
reading
there's a list of stuff that it supposedly correlates to you physically, but
Hmm.
the thing is, when I look at the list, it's a long list and it correlates to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like it's half the symptoms. Like if you have autoimmune diseases, most of the Schumann resonance things also tick all the same boxes.
Right.
For a lot of your aches, pains, lethargic, brain fog,
Heart
all of these different,
palpitation, ear
yeah,
ringing.
all these different things.
Yeah. Yeah. Digestive issues,
Right.
numbness or tingling, all of
Yeah.
this stuff. And I think that those lists are, I think they're made in good faith because people
Yeah, they
have
mean well.
experienced those symptoms, but you're right. Like you can't just say this is because of that.
Right.
You don't know. And that's why I I just can't stress enough the importance of each person taking their own agency back for
Yeah.
their life and for what they're feeling,
Mhm.
because I get a little bit frustrated, like if people say like, oh well, I aren't I this spike happened and that means I'm supposed to feel this, and I'm like, no, 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 you
Mhm.
have it backwards.
Yeah.
Tune into how you feel, and then if there's some external confirmation for that, use that as info to help you learn and gauge and understand it better. But
Mhm.
your center has got to be you,
Right.
and that's like kind of the crux of everything that I do now is trying to get people back to their own centeredness. Is like, being self-centered is not selfish. It
No.
means you have your own balance and you're steady, right?
Mhm.
So then when something comes along to knock you, you're still going to come back to your center, and you're not
Yeah.
going to be pulled off this way or that way by everything outside of you and everybody telling you
Mhm.
this or telling you that, which I know you see it too. It happens so much now
Oh,
on the
yeah.
internet, right? Because people are, they've got their hearts open because they're trying to figure stuff out and they're hurting or they're scared or they have an opinion about
Yeah.
something. And then all of a sudden somebody tells them like one thing and then they're just like hook in the mouth, here I go. It's like, okay, this is the thing that we all have to get away from, because if every person could pull themselves back to their own center, and when I say that, I go back to the thing I was saying about, you know, you are tuned to truth inside of you. I can't tune to your truth, Mary, and you can't
Right.
tune to mine, and I can't, yours is yours and mine is mine, and they might be the same, they might be
Mhm.
different because we all have different perspectives. But when everybody is being authentically themselves,
Right.
right? Like tuned fully into who they are at their
Right.
core, which if you buy into my way of putting it, that is love, that is truth, that is,
Mhm.
call it goodness, but that word gets a little bit sticky. If you're being authentic, you are then operating at a very high frequency. You
Mhm.
can see it in people's eyes, you can see it in the
Mhm.
way that they carry themselves, they radiate, right? And some people
Yes.
actually do glow, but that's a whole other story. So so when you've got people in a society operating in their own agency like that, all of a sudden you have the framework for that resonance and entrainment between people who are operating properly, right? And they're not being
Mhm.
pulled off this way or that way. The more that people do that, the more people you have resonating from a true space, the more effect they can have on the people who aren't there yet. Because it's just like I
Yeah.
said about the
Yeah.
turkey fork, right? If you're
And it's
close,
natural. It's
yeah,
not even them trying, it's just you be you
you don't
and
even
go
have to
out in
say
the
anything.
world,
Yeah, you
and
don't even have to
just
say
you being
anything.
authentic, you will, rub off, resonate,
Yep.
inspire, whatever term you wanna put on it, but yeah,
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
try that.
because
God, every time I leave my house, I try and set my mind right so that I'm out there just
yeah,
being authentic and being the best one I can, and how
me
it'll
too.
affect everybody because it
I
does.
don't always do it. I don't always win, like, sometimes the world gets me down and I, flip somebody off or whatever, but
I'm not saying I'm zen perfect.
yeah, and I know you're not, but it's not about being good according to what somebody else says. Like, I just made the joke about flipping somebody off. You know what?
Mhm.
might have been necessary in the moment. You know, like,
They
you
could
know
have
what
been a
I mean?
turd.
Like,
They could have been being
so
a real turd.
yeah, like, so, we've gotten so messed up by people allowing themselves to be told how they should and shouldn't think,
Yeah.
act, behave,
Yeah.
say, and what all that does is keep you from being authentic. It's the
Mhm.
authenticity that is the key. And like, if I'm operating at that frequency and I'm near somebody who is close, maybe they're not there
Mhm.
yet, but they're close, my frequency is going to pull them along. That's the entrainment. You've heard that
Mhm.
word. So entrainment means to pull along. So when you're talking about frequency, you got two things operating in sync, right?
Oh,
Well,
okay.
because the
Gotcha.
one pulls the other along until they're operating together.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think that on a grand scale is what's happening in the world. Unfortunately, it seems to be taking a very long time, but once you get the garbage and the lies out of the way and you start operating
Mhm.
from a space that is true and real and authentic,
Yeah.
that spreads like wildfire, and then the lies don't have a chance. I mean, it can't even coexist.
I'm
So
I'm actually really encouraged by the direction we're heading. Like,
mhm,
I feel like more truth is easier to find, and
mhm,
the lies go away faster than they did before. Before, it took years for the lies to go away. Now, it's a couple days sometimes. Like, I'm encouraged. I try not to let the despair, like, some people look around because I deal with news a lot,
mhm.
and it can be hard.
Yeah,
And
because
there's
I
some. Yeah,
yeah.
I know. You
I
you
walked away, but yeah,
shifted your content because you used to have the news on there too, and you were just like, "I can't, I'm gonna focus on this."
mhm.
And I don't blame you, I understand. It's
But
hard.
it's hard to see it. When
It's
I dip
hard.
back in, I have to sorta like, "Okay, this is
You have to
gonna
cleanse out.
affect."
Mhm.
Yeah. But I agree, I do think definitely things are changing. The fact
Mhm.
that we're having this conversation,
I
you
know.
know, it's kind of like, when you watch a video that's, like, sort of, like, questionable, or it's like one of those things where, like, people are going, "Oh, that never happened." It's like, the question is, who is holding the camera? And
Oh,
that's
the
kind of where
Mandela effect.
we're at.
Are we talking about the Mandela effect? Because
Well,
I would love to do a dive on that.
we probably should do one on that, but
I would
I'm
love
just
to do a dive on that.
that
Oh,
that really blow some heads open. Um,
because I see it happen.
yeah,
And I know it's changing, and I get why people are like, "It's timelines." I don't know if it is a timeline, but I can understand why they say that,
yeah,
because
like, however
they're
you wanna
shifting
explain
things. Like,
it. Yeah.
they're just changing things because we're in a digital world. They couldn't do it before when we were strictly physical. Now it's digital, so it's way
Mhm.
easier to screw with our heads.
Right.
Like, that's literally what it is. But yeah, I would love to do a dig on that one.
Yeah, okay, so we have to make the list of all the stuff
We
that we need to
do.
talk
We
about.
do. Do you
Um,
think you wanna come back?
yeah, as long as you want me to come back, I'm
Heck
like,
yeah.
I'll probably never listen to myself on this show, but hopefully I didn't sound like a goofball.
No, you have sounded great. No, I we need to schedule one because I really do wanna do a detox show.
Yeah, I would
I
love to
really
do
wanna do
that
that.
because, again, I was mentioning to you before,
Yeah,
I had to learn so much from the Lyme disease on
right.
detoxing, and, I feel like I have a lot to offer. It's kinda like, if I just went
Yeah,
through all that just for me, that's not cool. Like, other people need to learn
you
about
and
this stuff
you and
too.
Ash know way more than I do about gut health. Like, I did the food journals, and
Mm,
I isolated. I figured out what exactly I was allergic to, what was causing my autoimmune, what was
mhm.
aggravating it, what was, I mean, I'll always have the autoimmune, but how I
Maybe.
keep it under control, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah,
um,
it's tricky. It is tricky because I had to
yeah.
go through all that
It
too, that tedious, like, not
Yes.
eating anything and then
Yes.
writing everything down and
Oh,
then
yeah.
looking back and like, "Oh god, it was the tomato I ate 3 days ago," or,
Mine is seed oil. Seed oils, oh my
Mhm.
god, they're
That'll
horrible
mess
on
you up
me.
so
Oh,
fast,
they're so
so
bad.
fast. But the good part about it, though, if there's a good part, is that
Mm,
like we were saying, once you do get cleaned out,
yes. You're
and
fine-tuned.
you're fine tuned, and then it's not so hard because when you do eat something you shouldn't, you feel bad right away, and you can
Right.
make that correlation. Whereas when your system's all gunked up, you don't know what did it. You just feel bad
Mhm.
all the time, and you're trying to undo and figure it out.
Yeah.
And yeah, but eventually it becomes it's just a lot easier. You see that thing, you're like, yeah, I don't want that. I'm good. You know,
That'll
you
just
can
make it
probably
worse,
take
so we're
it
not
out.
gonna do that.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I hope we covered all the Schumann stuff.
I think we've done good. I'm gonna check the chat again. Thank you, Lance, for the 1,000 gold pills. He has really enjoyed our conversation. He said, "Thank you, ladies."
Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah, I can't see the comments. Not that I would want to, because it would just
I'll
distract
s
me.
I'll send you the link, and you can scroll back through them, especially
Oh,
since
cool. Okay.
I wanna have you back on soon.
I'd
So
love
that
to.
way, if we have additional things that they want us to cover or look at,
Yeah,
any of
like
it,
list
we
of
can.
questions or something.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, I'm by no means, I hope, did I say this? I don't know if I did. Like, I am not like an expert on this, and I don't want anybody to think like,
You're
ooh,
adorable.
I just, it's kind of like, I'll tell you what I know. That's the best
Well,
I can do,
I mean,
but
what the hell is an expert anyway? Because I'm told Harvard is full of experts.
yeah, usually there's somebody who's full of crap,
Yeah,
you know,
that's my point.
anymore.
Like, I I can give trial and error what I've done, what I've gone through, what worked, what didn't.
Mhm.
And I openly say everyone's different. Everybody is different. Their experiences, their chemical makeup, everything is going to be different. The best you can do is put it out there and they can take what you've learned and maybe tweak it.
Yeah,
That's always what I hope is, can you
yeah,
take what I'm saying and can you tweak it and find something that resonates or goes, like, I hope this show takes off and really grows, but I'm a firm believer in being a ripple in the pond.
yeah,
That's how I've approached since I
yeah,
started my little Telegram channel. I always just thought, all right, what else can I do? I feel like I'm shouting in the wind, but at least
yeah.
it's going out there. Maybe it hits the right person. That's all I
Yeah.
ever hope for,
Well,
you
and you
know.
know what? That's the thing, and I think we were talking about authenticity, and that is the way to it, because it's been the same experience for me. One day I literally got this like download, like, you
Oh,
will make
wow.
a Telegram channel, and you build the framework, and I was like, okay, all right, whatever. I didn't even know what Telegram was. So I at first it was like, oh man, I feel like this is useless. Like, I hardly have anybody listening, and
Right. That
but
was me.
the thing is like, our job is not to figure out how it gets where it needs to go. It's just to
Yeah.
speak the truth, just to tell
Just to
what
put
we
it
know.
out there.
Yeah, and then the universe will take care of the rest of it,
Mhm.
and seeing how far you've come in these last few years, from that to now you're running a podcast, girl, several, right? You
Yeah.
know? So, yeah,
Yeah,
just,
building a few extras. You
yeah. Well,
available? You wanna co-host?
I don't know if I would be any good at that, but
Can you
I
laugh at
definitely
jokes
can
with
help
me?
you.
Can you laugh at funny videos with me?
Uh-huh. I can. I
Because that's
really
one I'm
can.
trying to build.
There
I
was a
really
good
wanna.
period of time where I kinda couldn't, nothing was
Yeah.
really very funny,
I
but
I am
eventually you get it back.
I don't know how else to put this. I am currently compelled to make alternative content.
Mhm.
Like, I've got the news, and I'm really good at that, and I enjoy it. I am literally awake at night compelled to create this. Like, when you talk about a download, this
Mhm.
podcast was like, "You're gonna do this. This
Yep.
this is what," so,
Yeah.
like, I'm always looking at what other shows can we create that would be fun for people, because I feel like this year is so stressful. I
Yeah.
really wanna have content for people that they can take a time out, either
Yeah.
learn something or laugh or just decompress a little bit in the
Mhm.
mayhem,
Mhm.
just be that time out, you know?
Yeah. And get some control back over your
Mhm.
own life and your immediate
Yes.
surroundings, because it's not all about what's going on out there. In fact, it's
No.
very little about what's going on out there, but it is
I
so overwhelming.
I went back and watched The Matrix. We had a guest and his daughter, and she'd never seen it. She was like
Oh,
17,
wow.
and she'd
Oh,
never seen
ooh,
The
that was
Matrix. So
fun.
we got out the original Matrix and we watched it, and wow, watching it again, so
Yeah.
much of it,
Did she like it?
she loved it. She
Yeah.
absolutely loved it. Like, I
Yeah.
have a feeling so many things that she sees in meme world made sense now
Mhm. Oh,
because
right, because
there's a
so many
million.
are in that,
There's
yeah.
tons, but I always think about, like, our physical reality like this, and then there's the outside world, and when I think of the outside world, I think of it in terms of how the Matrix displayed it. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like, when we're talking about frequency and we're talking about everything in motion, we're talking about, like, maybe I'm weird, but that's a visual to me, like, the disconnect in the outside.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
Yeah,
I
you're making perfect sense. I mean, I always think of that scene with the girl in the red dress,
Oh,
the
yes.
whole world is the girl in the red
Yes.
dress, and I think that's why, it gets said that, like, I don't know if I should get into this, like the world is ruled by Satan and all of this, and it's like, okay, like, what it really is it's pulling you away from
From your
your
center.
own self. You've
Yeah,
got everything you need right in the middle of you if you can just
right.
tune into it, you know?
I always think, God put the spark of life in us, and we all have it, and he gave us free will. So
Mhm,
whenever I see people doing horrible things, it's free will.
mhm.
It's not because they were a certain demographic. Like, I don't believe in lumping people in boxes. I know a
Yep.
lot of people, we tend to be at our basic nature, I think, tribal, and that's a
Mhm.
simplistic way for us to view things.
Yeah, it's a
And the
survival
the
mechanism.
Matrix does train us to do that.
Mhm.
We are
Yep,
trained from tiny children to do that. But
right.
at the end of the day, it's not because it's a particular demographic or any culture. What is free will? At the end of the day, they chose that route. Now they
Yep.
were pulled and they were maybe showed that or it was influenced, but it still is free will,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And that is the part that is missing from so many structures and so many schools of
Yeah.
thought is like each person has their own agency to do
Yes.
with as they choose,
And they
you
have to
know?
take responsibility for the choices they made. It's
Exactly.
not that goes back into the whole blame and victim and
Mhm.
the mess that we
Right.
deal with,
Yeah.
and you have to take it sucks. I mean,
Yeah.
when I was a little kid, I didn't wanna take responsibility when I did something and I got caught. No ki and that's how I think back to, like, so many of these things that I see that have become structured behavior, it's
Mhm.
me when I was 8 or
Yeah.
10.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean, that's
I'm
sort
like,
of like the basis for our society, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
like, I remember getting caught doing something, be like, "No, I didn't do that," but
Yeah,
obviously
sure.
I did,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. And now we
"No,
have
I didn't
adults running
accidentally break
around who
that.
do the same thing. Yeah, like, "Oh, I didn't do that."
I didn't
Or
do
they'll
that."
make up their own version of what actually happened, and it's like,
Right, I'm just like,
"Yeah, you did."
we've reverted back to, like, so many, but in another sense, I have a lot of empathy
Mhm.
for, like, when I don't know, I'm going deep and I'm squirreling off topic here, but so much of this, I really, looking back, I have empathy because it's how I used to feel.
Mhm.
It's literally that simple for me. Like, I
Mhm.
can look back at different stages through the decades of my life and think, "Okay, when I was this age, I kinda thought that way."
Yep.
I was more influenced, and I can pull back in the 40,000-foot view, and I can look at what was in my external influence during that time
Mhm.
period.
Mhm.
What was important to me that I drew influence from, and that tells me what was
Right.
influence. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and once you can't really help someone going
unless
through
they're ready.
something unless
Yeah,
they're ready or unless you've been through it
that's
or
true.
something that parallels it to the point that you truly understand. It's kind of like maybe it was Ash said this, like,
Mhm. We need to
you
get her
can't
on
we
when she
do,
can
like,
come back. We need to do a show together, the 3 of us. Oh my god.
yeah, we
Love
do.
so
You
much
can't
fun.
you can't, like, raise kids by reading a book on raising kids. You
True.
know, you
True.
can't bake something by just reading the cookbook. You know, like you have to actually like have the experiences. And if you really want to get all kind of spiritual here, that's why we come here, is to have the experiences that we have here. At least
Mhm.
that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
So you come here to actually embody it and live it and understand it. And
Mhm.
from those places, you're then able to help other people, which is why it's like, yeah, I would love to share what I learned about the Lyme disease, because baby, I was all the way in it, and I would
Yeah.
love for that to be able to help somebody else. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's make a
And
list of all the shows.
okay. Let's make a list. I have Ash that's our mod is coming back in April, but she's going to reoccur with me and we're going to be doing gardening all season because she has a
Oh,
gardening
cool.
channel.
Yeah, I liked her. Uh,
She's adorable.
yeah,
She's
yeah,
just
that.
adorable. So, I maybe we can do something like that with you and with
Okay.
Ash because there's so many topics. Like I was saying, I would love to get into predictive programming. I
Yeah.
really want to get us to where we're able to talk about that conceptually and do examples. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's a series, honestly, because it's so
Hmm.
deep. And you and I have a
Yeah.
Telegram channel where we just have clips of films that
Right.
are predictive programming.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I didn't even put that on our links. I should have put, I never think to put that channel that
I
we
don't either, because it kind of just happened,
it's
but
yeah, it's not one that I regularly contribute to. That's probably why. Like, but
yeah.
it's still got a lot of good stuff on there.
Yeah.
I'll have to look at
Well,
doing more with that.
we'll figure all that out. Anyway, I
Yeah,
just, I hope I didn't miss anything. If I did, I'm sorry, but
I don't think so. Let me check the chat and see if anybody else. They're making some odd comments. They think you're very smart.
oh, that's
Mhm.
very sweet. I don't know if it's
We have a
accurate.
we have a great team. We really do. I love our chat. I'm not seeing any particular
Okay,
questions, but they know how to reach me, and we've got all of your links out there too. So they can
good.
always
Okay,
check out all of your channel and Twitter
yeah.
and, reach out to you, and then
My main thing
I'll
is
book
on
you again.
Telegram for
Yeah,
sure.
that's me too.
Yeah,
That's like
I mean, I
I
venture
probably
out
should
to
do more of the
X
other
or
ones.
whatever, but yeah.
Instagram is so easy to use for me, and I'm so used to it.
And I keep meaning to write more, because I got the Substack going, but there's only a handful of articles on there, and yes, I'm working on the book, but it's so slow. So yeah, let's
Well,
talk.
all right. All right. We'll do that. I can make an we'll see if I can get this thing. It's probably not going to play, but I'll try. See if it glitches again. That'll be super fun. All right. Is there anything that you want to add before we go? Any takeaways, anything you want
Um,
people to think about or
I think the takeaways were kind of wrapped up in there. Just
Mhm.
get back to yourself. And yeah, that's actually it. Really, really, that's it.
Okay.
Honestly, I've come to the conclusion that that's pretty much what everything is about. So I hope if this
I'm
helps
right there with you.
anybody to kind of do a little bit more of that, that would be
Do some more
great.
digging on it. Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you so much for having me, Mary. That was really, I appreciate it very much, and I
Oh,
enjoyed it. So
I
thank
love
you.
it. I was so excited when you agreed to do it. I was like, "Yes." 'Cause well, even just as simple, I have not physically heard your voice for a year. It's
Oh,
been that long
yeah, I'm not
since we had the
surprised.
phone call and we were doing we 'cause we were working on another project,
Yeah.
which was a variation of this one.
Yep. Yep.
So but I was just so excited to get to spend time with you again. Because I mean, we DM and we message all the time, but
But it's not
it's
the
not the
same.
same.
Yeah.
It's not the
Yeah.
same.
Well, it's nice to talk to you. Eventually, it will be in the same physical space too.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah.
One of us will find a way. If
Yeah.
I'm going out that direction, I will find a way for
Come
sure.
on over.
All
Same.
right. I'm going to make an effort here with the outro, folks. Fingers crossed. Let's see if it works.
All right. Crossing fingers.